Well, Lisa, I want to welcome you. I guess I was going to say back, but this is a different
You're
podcast.
in new digs.
We're in new digs and
doing new things.
And last time I think we had you on was part of a podcast we were doing in the real estate world, and now we have you on our Life Along the Streetcar podcast. So I guess welcome back to my world, and welcome to this particular audience.
Thank you. I'm glad to be back. You actually had me on Life on the Streetcar when I was chairing a committee for the Tucson Association of Realtors, and we had a housing fair.
I remember the housing fair. Yep.
So I guess I am back.
Okay, well,
right?
Welcome back, and that shows you what kind of research your host is doing.
Right.
The topic today, it's a little bit, it's very specific to a group, to a specific need. And you've been working on this for years, but let's take a quick step back, because if those that remember either of those interviews, you were in a different role then than you are now. So you are now with the Tucson Association of Realtors.
I am. I was asked to consider coming on as staff. I had volunteered with the association from the time I became licensed as a real estate agent. So took a little bit of time to think about that and decided to accept the role, and I now lead member services, professional development for the association, and I also am school administrator because we also have a school.
Yeah.
And
those are three distinctly different roles.
They are, although they're synergistic.
Yeah, I get that. I get that. We, I remember when you took the position, I was like, that kind of makes sense. She was already spending all of that time. You were traveling to the state capitol. You were doing all kinds of things as a volunteer, trying to manage your very successful real estate business on the side. And I think you were like, you know what, I'm here every day anyway.
Right. It wasn't much of a transition, I got to say.
I think your first day, people are like, what do you mean it's your first day?
Right,
it's your first day.
Weren't you just here on Friday?
Why are we celebrating her? Good heavens. Shoot. So briefly, Tucson Association Realtors, tell us, this is a probably the largest trade association?
It's the largest trade association in Southern Arizona. Yep, over 6,500 members. We are the professional association for real estate agents, but also our members make up a whole host of affiliates, including lenders like yourself, home inspectors, right? We also have appraisers. So it is the industry association.
And kind of what are some of the goals of the association in general? Obviously it's about the trade, but it's also protecting consumers throughout the process, right?
Advocacy is a huge part of the work we do. Advocacy education, which is mostly my role. I continuously merge those two things together. Of course, connecting the community and serving.
Okay. Well, I know I've been involved on and off for 10 plus years with the association, probably more than that. Not to the point where they put me on staff, but there was a point where I thought maybe I should, and recognize mostly there's a really strong and dedicated staff, but a lot of the work is done by volunteers.
Indeed. It is a partnership. We couldn't do our work as staff without our volunteer leaders. We have 18 committees on the association, and when I say the association, it really is 3 different entities under the umbrella of the association. So we have the association. We also have the Multiple Listing Service of Southern Arizona, which is an entity unto itself, and then we also have our charitable foundation.
All right.
And all 3 of those organizations have their own boards of directors, committees.
But one staff, right?
One staff
services
indeed,
all 3.
that supports it all.
Yes. The 3 different chairs of the board to please. You're my number 1 priority today.
Right.
Shoot. Well, the work that you have done that we talked about on the mortgage side of things when I was doing that podcast, and we'll of course link to that in the information for this one so people can get a look at that, was really specific to an effort you were taking on of working on ways of identifying, fixing, and ultimately preventing deed fraud. Thank you.
Yep.
Different names popping through my head there.
Right.
And I remember this became such a hot topic, and in my mind, up until it became a hot topic, I had no idea what it was.
Right.
And can you kind of give us the background of what deed fraud is?
Sure. So deed fraud is mostly what it is termed. Sometimes you'll hear it as title theft. It is a combination of just fraud in general and identity theft generally. The goal of the crime is to seize possession of property and then either sell it or leverage it in a way that the criminals want to use it. I came upon both the term and the crime on my nightly reading, right? I start and end my days by reading, and one of the articles I came across was about a case in the Phoenix area, and it had garnered some national attention. And in this case, the rightful owner of the property had passed away, and the fraudster had impersonated them. And an iBuying company.
Explain that really briefly. iBuy.
Sure, yeah. So iBuyers are companies that generally use technology and algorithms to identify properties, make offers, usually in cash, with a very quick turnaround time. And their business model includes flipping the property, right? So they'll do minimal upgrades or repairs or even remodeling in order to resell the property. So their intention is not to hold the property. They're wanting to buy it quickly, as cheaply as possible, and then turn it around and resell it.
So in this particular case, you have a deceased property owner. Someone has assumed their identity, taken possession of the property, at least appearing to take possession of the property, and then you've got this company coming in that's really looking at numbers and not all the data.
Correct. And frankly, all of the best practices that we use as real estate agents and realtors weren't happening in this particular transaction. So the fraudster impersonates the rightful owner, sells it to the iBuyer. In the midst of them getting ready to resell it, the executor of the estate becomes aware. And it so happens they are a realtor. And exposed the crime and set about their own journey, right, to incorporate and learn all of the lessons on how this could have happened and what needs to change. And so that's how I became aware of the crime.
And what time frame was this?
This was in 2020, 2021.
Yeah, okay.
So the market also contributed in terms of the speed of the market, right? And some of those best practices falling by the wayside because of the speed of the market, the lack of inventory, the demand for purchase, and especially in the Phoenix area. I remember in my own business, I was calling it warp speed, right? And I was having to prepare both buyers and sellers for just the sheer speed that we were dealing with. And I remember in one case, I sold a property in 4 hours. In another case, I had 20 showings in a 4-hour time frame, right? So that didn't help.
Yeah, the haste of trying to get everything accomplished and serving your clients as buyers or sellers. Sometimes you have to take that step back and slow down a little bit. But anyway, so you come across this in 2020, 2021, somewhere in that time frame, and decide, I want to spend the next 4 years of my life working on this.
Right. I have nothing else going on. Well, it became then a question of, oh gosh, how are we protecting and preventing this from happening again, right? Because I thought, this is my bailiwick. Like, this is my livelihood. This is absolutely in my wheelhouse. And what do I need to learn about it? And then what do I need to do about it? And so that's how I became engaged initially, and then informed and ultimately empowered to understand and identify what I'm calling the gaps in the ecosystem. And then at the same time, at the state level, the state legislature had become aware of the issue, and legislation had been passed to require counties to implement a voluntary notification system by 2025. That's literally the only thing the law says. It's 2 sentences, right? And that was passed and said about what the Pima County Recorder's Office has done, which is to implement an in notification system.
I think that's when you and I talked about it. That had just been released when you and I spoke about this topic last.
Yes.
Because I remember I opted in right afterwards, and I will get notices that says, hey, your name is this, and just so you know, this is what's happening.
Correct. And because that notification system is, as I said, opt-in, meaning that you have to go in, and in our case, it's a two-step process. You create an account with the Pima County Recorder's Office. That information is verified. Then you enroll in what the Recorder's Office calls Fraud Notify. And that system is also at a name level. Mm-hmm. So you got to enter different iterations of your name, right? And so that's important to let people know, because our legal name might be one, what we use on other documents could be another, right? So there's different variations to our name. In our world, though, by the time something gets to the Recorder's Office, it's a done deal. So there's a lot of work that can be done to prevent this type of crime from even getting to the Recorder's Office. But these criminals are quite brazen, and they are not only falsifying documents, but they're creating documents that are available online and submitting them as legitimate, because one of the gaps is that not all information is publicly available. And so it meant that the first thing I did was to identify and convene a group of stakeholders. And it ended up being about 30 of us in a room discussing this issue.
Across the state?
Across our area,
okay.
Our region, because once I understood that the legislation indicated that it's at a county level, you all are going to have to figure this out, was when I thought, oh, okay, well, I happen to have relationships in Pima County. And so I feel like there's something I can do about it.
Well, and where are we now? What is why are we
the
talking
outcome,
again?
Yes,
why are we
there's
talking
exciting
again?
updates.
Because if it's just the same stuff, I'm going to cancel this interview right now.
End it. Cut. So Fraud Notify, right, needs to still, in the county's database, there's over 435,000 property owners. There's only about 1,500 who have enrolled in the notification system, right? So I will keep beating that drum until we get much closer to the 435,000. So still, right, enroll in the Fraud Notify program through the County Recorder's Office. Really excitingly, though, the county assessor changed their process when it comes to how records are updated. So in my world, right, as a realtor, that is the final step, right? So we go through a transaction, it closes, then there's recordation, we can hand over the keys. Then the final step is for the county assessor's database to be updated to reflect that change in the property's ownership. Now, not only, but situations change, right? Not only through sales and things like that, but now if you request a change through the Pima County Assessor's Office, you have to present identification, government-issued identification that will be cross-referenced with MVD records. And this is one of the ways that the assessor, because up until these discussions, there was no way to really substantiate that someone presenting themselves as the property owner and having the right to change the record is. And so they've instituted these identity verification steps in order to protect the property owners in a process like that.
It just seems like such a simple fix.
And yet, it took nearly a year for that change to be instituted because, of course, there had to be legal review. There were liability questions and concerns.
So who is responsible for checking that ID then? Is it, if you're doing a sale that happens at the title company, who does the cross-referencing?
So there's different due diligence that occurs throughout the life of a transaction. And I like to say hopefully a realtor is involved, right? Because there are multiple individuals and entities that are involved in any transaction, as you know. Half a dozen easily, right? So we're all doing our due diligence. On the verification side, mostly that hero's work is being done by title and escrow.
Okay.
And in some cases, they're going back 4 and 5 generations to verify that, again, who's presenting themselves, especially as the seller, is actually the legitimate seller. Title and escrow have also changed some of their practices, and some of them, not all, but some, are even sending letters or packets to the sellers as a way of verifying something like, congratulations on your property being in escrow, and then verifying that in fact it is.
And hoping they don't get that phone call. What are you talking about?
Right, I'm not selling my property. Right, so title and escrow are developing and devising different practices for them to be able to, again, substantiate, right, that the individuals presenting themselves as either legitimate sellers and or buyers are in fact legitimate. Sometimes attorneys are surfacing.
Yeah.
Because part of what I also learned is that there is a lack of legal remedy for people who do end up falling victim to this type of crime. Our state laws are currently insufficient. So how we define fraud, for example, how we define identity theft. Some states have laws that are called property forfeiture laws, meaning that if a property was part of an illegal act, the law provides for the property to be returned to the rightful owner. Right now, the only way that can be done is by someone hiring attorneys. Because when fraudulent documents are recorded, you can't take them back. Mm-hmm. Other documents have to be recorded that then supersede or verify.
Well, and you have two victims there. You have the person that legitimately bought the
Correct.
property, thinking the seller was acting in complete
Good faith.
Mm-hmm. And then you have the wrong seller. So you have two different entities fighting now over that property, and they both have a case for fraud.
Right. And so my intention and goal was really just making it undesirable and not palatable for them to want to do their business here,
Yeah.
right? And so we have the notification system at the county recorder's office, but our own title and escrow plant members also develop their internal notification system that is at a property level.
Mm-hmm. And just really briefly, because we're just using terms, title plant, it's not like a stooge that we've got planted there. The title companies have gotten together and basically created a mirror of the public record so that they can
Correct.
they can go a little bit more quickly
Their
and efficiently
own database.
than that. That's so with this, as we're wrapping up here, where do people stay in touch or get in touch if they've been a victim or if they've got concerns? Does the association have a website? Is there a...
So the Arizona Department of Real Estate has asked that these types of complaints be reported to them. One of the other updates is that the Arizona Attorney General's office now is investigating all, allegations of deed fraud. And so submit those complaints to the Arizona Department of Real Estate. Of course, we can help put people in touch. We have resources that will be coming up on our website. Again, links to the county recorder's office and the fraud notify program. And on the Pima County Assessor's office, you can see the instructions for how to request changes to their database.
Can someone from the public reach out to you directly if they have questions?
Absolutely.
And how would they do that?
They would do that by emailing me at lisan@tucsonrealtors.org.
All right. Well, we will, on the video portion of that, we'll post that for people to see.
Thank
and
you.
We'll add that information in the Facebook post that we put out to share the podcast.
And we are hoping, because the other bit was that we engaged certainly several state legislators on the issue, and the legislative session just opened this week, and I have generously shared all of my information and resources with them. So there might be some additional legislation that we see
Maybe we'll
coming out
get
of this session.
maybe we'll get 4 sentences. We'll double the effort.
Indeed, yeah.
Lisa Nutt with the Tucson Association of Realtors, talking about a very important topic here with deed fraud. One of the many things that the association is working on to protect consumers and property rights here in Southern Arizona. Oh. And as a member, full disclosure, I'm a member and a fan of the work being done, and appreciate the fact that you are actually moving from volunteer to staff and can really focus 100% of the attention on the duties instead of trying to run that pesky little real estate business.
Although it still exists.
Yes. Oh, you're still doing that too?
I do.
Oh my gosh, okay. Mm-hmm. All right, so we'll have to have you back and talk about that.
Thank you, yeah.
Thanks,
I'm
Lisa.
glad and grateful to be back.